We're sorry, Mr. Bennett, but your position is being eliminated effective immediately. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. 11 days. Just 11 more days, and I would have qualified for the $96,500 retirement bonus I'd earned over 27 years. But in less than 10 minutes, Chase Whitman, the new ice-cold CEO, ended it all with a manila envelope. Boise, Idaho. Not a loud city, not chaotic. Summit Hardware Corp, set in the South Industrial Zone, where the clang of machines and the smell of grease were as familiar as breath. I'd been there since before my hair turned gray and my back began to ache. I'm Miles Bennett, 60 years old, started here at 33, fresh out of the Army. I'd fixed bolts, written safety manuals, trained hundreds of new hires, and never showed up late. Across the table sat Chase Whitman, the new CEO, less than 6 months on the job, some tech guy from San Francisco, calculating, distant, and clueless about the real value of a factory. He slid the envelope toward me and said, "Thanks for your service, but the company's restructuring. We need to look forward." Inside was a severance agreement, 6 weeks pay, 3 months of health insurance, and a waiver saying I wouldn't sue. I closed the folder with steady hands. I didn't argue. I stood, shook his hand. "Thanks for the opportunity," I said. He looked thrown off, probably expected me to yell or beg. I gave him nothing. I walked past the warehouse floor. The silence was deafening. People watched but said nothing. Their eyes said it all. At my desk, I packed up the coffee mug my daughter gave me, a photo of Linda, my wife, gone 4 years now, my safety awards. I boxed it all up. Noah Diaz, a young forklift operator I trained last year, walked over. "Mr. Bennett, this isn't right." I patted his shoulder. "That's life, Noah." At the security desk, I handed over my badge and keys. The guard wouldn't meet my eyes. I smiled. I didn't want them to see me crumble. But deep down, I knew 27 years of loyalty had been erased, and I was just 11 days short. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table, papers spread out like puzzle pieces. I remembered Eli, my nephew in Portland, an employment lawyer, once told me, "Uncle Miles, if anything feels wrong, just call." I picked up the phone, hesitated, then dialed. "Hey, Eli, I need your help." "Uncle Miles, if what you're telling me is accurate, this isn't just wrongful termination. This could be a breach of contract." I drove to Portland the next morning. The sky was gray, mist drizzling like the mood inside me. Eli Mercer's office was in a sleek, glass-paneled building. Clean carpets, the faint aroma of espresso, a world apart from the rusty factory floor in Boise. Eli, 28, tall, sharp, wire-frame glasses, eyes always processing 100 thoughts. He's my sister's son, brilliant since childhood. Now a respected labor lawyer here in Portland. He pulled out a chair for me and smiled. "Still looking sharp, Uncle." I told him everything, the timing, the severance papers, the non-litigation clause, and most of all, the 11 days short of my retirement bonus. Eli frowned at the word 11. He opened his laptop and pulled out the old Summit employee handbook I had brought. "You know this, right?" he said, flipping to page 42. "You wrote this, didn't you?" I nodded. Over 15 years ago, I helped design that internal policy. I'd personally drafted a clause to protect older employees. Employees within 30 days of retirement bonus eligibility cannot be terminated without just cause approved by the board. Eli looked up. "You were fired with 19 days left." A chill ran down my spine. I thought I was just another old guy being pushed out, but I might be holding the key to something far bigger. Eli leaned forward. "If Chase didn't get board approval, this is more than just shady. It's actionable, and if other people went through the same thing." I sat in silence for a moment, then said, "I still have access to my company email until Thursday." Eli lit up. "Perfect. Download everything. Emails, memos, anything with the keywords. Restructure, retirement, termination. We need a trail." As I stood to leave, Eli put a hand on my shoulder. "You're not alone in this, Uncle. If Chase messed up, we'll make sure he answers for it." I nodded. My legs felt shaky, but for the first time in days, my heart felt steady. "I've revised your severance package to include 12 weeks pay, With one condition, you sign it today. Tuesday morning, I returned to the plant, not to beg, but to print everything before my company email was deactivated. The CEO's office now gleamed in steel and glass, cold and sterile. Gone was the warmth of James, our former CEO, who once called me the backbone of this factory. Before I could reach Dad, Chase Whitman appeared in the hallway, arms crossed, like he'd been expecting me. Chase, sharp, polished, emotionless. The kind of man who made decisions by spreadsheet, not by heart. Me? I'd saved this plant from a fire in 2004, trained half the workforce, and built operations manuals from scratch. Now I was being tossed out like expired inventory. He pulled me into his glass-walled office and handed me a new agreement, 12 weeks pay instead of 6, but still with the non-litigation clause. This is my final offer, he said. It expires at close of business today. He smelled trouble and wanted to shut it down before it started. I stared at the paper, but my mind echoed Eli's voice. Don't sign anything. We need time and evidence. I'll need time to think, I told Chase. He smiled thinly. Be careful, Mr. Bennett. Second chances don't come often. I left and went straight to the internal printer. Pulled every email I'd ever received from HR, Chase, and the leadership team in the last year. My hands trembled as I read an email titled Q4 Strategy, Workforce Optimization. Inside, reduce retirement payouts by aligning restructuring dates. Prioritize action on employees 55 plus before eligibility milestones. My blood ran cold. They'd been planning the purge for months. I printed all of it, 47 pages. Hid them under the floor mat of my truck. At 5:01 p.m., I walked back into Chase's office. I won't be signing, I said. Chase shrugged. Then we revert to the original terms. That's fine, I said. I think I'll manage. Driving home, I called Eli. You're going to want to see this, I told him. I just printed Chase's playbook. I wasn't just a discarded worker anymore. I was holding evidence. I think you should know you're not the first, Walt Jennings said, placing a thin file on the table. I've got a list. 6 other employees who were all let go within weeks of qualifying for their retirement bonuses. I stared at him, a mix of shock and anger rising in my chest. I had thought I was an exception, a random casualty in a messy restructuring. But it turns out I was just one piece in a calculated pattern. One by one, they had been quietly removed from Summit right at the moment when their decades of loyalty were about to pay off. No farewell, no closure, just silence. That afternoon in Portland was unusually overcast. I sat in Eli's law office, a comfortable leather chair doing little to ease my discomfort. On the whiteboard, Eli had scrawled names and dates of former Summit employees. Some of them I used to eat lunch with. Some had once surprised me with a birthday cupcake in the warehouse break room. The meeting room was small and sterile, lit by harsh white lights, but the tension inside made it feel more like an interrogation room. Each name was a clue, and Eli was connecting them like pieces in a corporate crime puzzle. Walt Jennings was someone I'd long respected at Summit. He worked in quality control for 32 years. Precise, almost to a fault. I remembered one time he halted the entire assembly line because a single bolt wasn't threading correctly. Thanks to him, we avoided shipping a faulty batch to a major hospital chain. But today, he didn't look like the proud engineer I once knew. He sat slightly hunched, hands trembling, as he pulled out a small USB drive and told Eli, I recorded it because something felt wrong, and I had a feeling I might need this someday. We plugged the USB into Eli's laptop. The first few seconds were just a shuffle of feet and the sound of a chair sliding. Then came Chase's voice, clear, measured, almost rehearsed. Walt, we appreciate your years of service, but to move forward, we need more adaptable minds. Frankly, we could use fewer gray heads around here. I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles cracked. There it was, undeniable proof. Chase had intentionally targeted older workers to cut retirement costs. Walt looked at me, his eyes damp. I was 3 weeks from qualifying. He knew. He just didn't care. Eli closed the audio file, turned to me and said, Uncle Miles, it's not just you. He started cross-referencing data, termination dates, ages, job titles, proximity to retirement benefits. A chilling pattern emerged. Patricia, head of accounting, fired 29 days before her 60th birthday. Don, warehouse manager, terminated after 25 years, just 2 months before pension eligibility. Helen, tech specialist, laid off for performance issues, despite receiving a company award the month before. All of them, Eli said, were protected by the policy you helped write, and every single one was pushed out in the gray area just before full coverage kicked in. I'm filing with the EEOC, Eli announced. If they agree to investigate, we move forward with a federal class action lawsuit. I stared at the list of names. How many of them thought they were alone? Just unlucky? No, we were part of a system, a quiet, methodical betrayal designed to exploit silence and fear. This wasn't just about bonuses anymore. It was about dignity, about justice. I nodded slowly. I'll be the lead plaintiff. Let's do this. I'm not going to fade away quietly. Walt shook my hand. His grip was firm, despite the shake. Eli began drafting the formal complaint. Names, job histories, recordings, documentation. What I felt wasn't sadness anymore. It was resolve. I had nothing left to lose, but I still had my name, my voice, and a responsibility to every worker still in that warehouse who thought they didn't. That night, I received an unexpected email from Natalie Brooks, Summit's longtime HR director. We had worked together for over 2 decades. Mr. Bennett, I know what's happening. I need to speak with you privately. There are things Chase hid, even from me. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I typed a single line in reply. I'm ready. I knew then nothing would ever be the same again. If I stay quiet, he wins. But if I speak up, I could lose my job, or worse. Natalie Brooks' voice echoed in my mind as I drove to the meeting spot. Once a respected HR director, she was now risking her career, just to tell the truth. We met at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of Portland. No cameras, no familiar faces, no corporate logos. Natalie arrived a few minutes late, looking more worn down than I'd imagined. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes, a woman who hadn't slept well in days. She sat down, skipping any pleasantries. I have 20 minutes, she said, and if anyone asks, we never met. Natalie had once been the moral compass of Summit. She protected employees when the old CEO made harsh calls. I used to believe she was the last person at HQ who still saw people as more than numbers. When Chase took over, she went silent. I thought she'd switched her sides. But I was wrong. She'd been fighting from the inside all along. She pulled a thick folder from her bag. I couldn't email this. Chase's IT team monitors everything, but I printed it. I flipped through the pages. Restructuring plans, age-based risk tier lists, bonus deferral strategies. My name was there under Phase 2 priority terminations. Walt's name, Patricia's, many others, dates, check marks, corporate math. Natalie pointed to a line in one memo. Potential savings, $500,000 if employees over 58 are removed prior to Q4. Chase never got board approval, she said. He just handed me the list. Any objections got ignored. I asked, what about legal? All replaced. Every lawyer in-house now reports directly to him. She handed me a USB. This has a recording from a strategy meeting, something I'll never forgive him for. That night I played the file. Chase's voice filled the room. We don't owe these old folks anything. Their time is done. It's time to refresh the bloodline. My hands clenched. This wasn't just greed. It wasn't just policy. It was a direct insult to an entire generation. And now I had it on record. I sent everything to Eli that night. By morning, he called back. We can prove intent. This isn't just a breach. This is systemic age discrimination. He revised the EEOC complaint, added Natalie's evidence. We now had nearly 10 witnesses, 3 recordings, and over 60 pages of internal documents. The strategy was clear. Go straight at the board. Force them to respond. That afternoon, Natalie texted me one final update. Chase called an emergency meeting. Word is someone from the Seattle board is flying in for a surprise audit. I smiled. Finally, light was breaking through enemy lines. We're moving forward with an official investigation. Please prepare documents, witnesses, and any supporting evidence. Eli read the email from the EEOC aloud. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission had spoken. The battle was now official. It was Monday morning. Eli and I sat in his office, surrounded by documents, sticky notes, and printed timelines. One wall tracked who was terminated, when, how close they were to their bonuses. Another wall had our witness tree, from Walt to Natalie, from Patricia to the former gate guard. We weren't just reacting anymore. We were building an offensive, and it was working. Lena Parks, an investigative journalist at a local newspaper, joined next. She'd received an anonymous copy of the complaint and immediately requested to meet. Young, sharp, with eyes that scanned everything like a recording lens. "I'm not chasing headlines," she said. "I'm chasing truth." For the first time, I told the full story, not to a lawyer, but to the world. As news leaked, Chase countered hard. He called an all-hands meeting, claiming that a disgruntled former employee is spreading misinformation and harming Summit's reputation. Then came the letter from Summit's corporate counsel, warning me that unauthorized disclosure of internal documents may result in legal action. I handed the letter to Eli. He read it and scoffed. Intimidation tactic. Headlines exploded. Summit Hardware accused of systemic age discrimination. Lena's first article quoted anonymous sources, referenced leaked recordings. It struck a nerve. Within 48 hours, two more former employees contacted Eli, asking to join the case. We updated the EEOC filing, added new evidence. Summit's lawyers tried to dismiss, but the federal judge scheduled a preliminary hearing. Then came Natalie's message. The board is sending a rep down, not to ask questions, to manage the crisis. And then the biggest shock, Chase was placed on temporary suspension. Internal investigation pending. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like a door creaking open. We still had storms ahead, but we were no longer alone. Eli organized a group call with all plaintiffs. For the first time we met each other. Walt, Patricia, Don, Helen, even Ted, the old gatekeeper. We sat in a circle, shared our stories, our pain, our anger, and our hope. It wasn't paperwork anymore. It was human, and we were finally being heard. That evening, I emailed Sophie, my daughter in San Francisco. "I'm not ashamed anymore. I fought, not just for myself, but for everyone like me." I hit send, then stepped out onto the porch and watched the sun melt behind the trees Linda once planted. For the first time in weeks, I felt peace. "I'm a board member at Summit," the man said, "and I want to formally apologize to you, Mr. Bennett. What happened does not reflect the values this company was built on." I sat up straighter. This wasn't a lawyer or PR rep talking. This was real authority, finally speaking. The meeting was held at Eli's law office, not at Summit headquarters. Eli had insisted, "We don't walk into their lion's den." Summit sent 3 representatives, a lawyer, a PR consultant, and a gray-suited man in his 60s. Calm, dignified, he introduced himself as Harold Green, a senior board member. He'd once served as CFO under the old CEO. I remembered him. He shook my hand at my 20-year work anniversary. Harold didn't speak much, but when he did, the room listened. No deflections, no PR spin. After hearing Eli's entire presentation, he sighed and said, "We gave Chase too much autonomy, and we failed to exercise proper oversight." I didn't expect him to admit that, especially in front of plaintiffs preparing to sue his company. Summit offered a settlement. Full retirement bonuses restored, 6 months of additional salary, a private apology letter. I glanced at Eli. He nodded politely, and then laid our proposal flat on the table. Full bonuses plus interest, backdated retirement contributions, a new policy protecting older workers, and Chase must resign. Publicly, the room went silent. Negotiations dragged for 2 hours. Summit tried spinning internal confusion and unclear responsibility. Eli wasn't having it. He cited specific clauses, played recordings, showed cost analyses Natalie had provided. Harold stayed quiet most of the time. But when Summit's lawyer said they needed more time, Harold placed a firm hand on the table. "No, they're right," and Mr. Whitman crossed the line. Harold turned to me and said, "We've terminated Chase Whitman's contract. Effective he will not return to Summit." The room held its breath. Eli raised his eyebrows. I gripped the chair lightly, not out of glee, but because accountability finally had a face. Sometimes that matters more than compensation. The final settlement. My full retirement bonus plus interest. 2 years of missed contributions restored. A formal apology letter in my HR file. Similar compensation for the 7 other plaintiffs. And most notably, a new company policy named the Miles Bennett Fair Employment Policy, launching next quarter. Driving home, I didn't feel relieved. I felt grounded. This wasn't about revenge. It was about doing what's right. When I got home, my phone buzzed. A message from Sophie. Dad, I'm so proud of you. I looked out the window. The evening sun cast gold across Linda's apple trees. And for the first time in years, I felt seen. Mr. Bennett, this is a plaque from all of us. Those who stayed. Thank you for fighting for what's right. I held the wooden plaque in my hands. It read, Miles Bennett, 27 years of service. A man who stood for us all. And I knew this story didn't end with a check. It ended with truth restored. Wednesday afternoon, I returned to Summit, not to work, but to finalize my retirement. Natalie Brooks greeted me in the lobby. She no longer looked like the nervous woman from whispered meetings. Today, she stood tall, like someone who'd stepped fully out of the shadows. She handed me a sealed envelope with my retirement documents, apology letter, and final payout, then silently offered the plaque. This is the recognition you should have received long ago, she said. As I stepped into the warehouse, something unexpected happened. Tony Lopez, the young worker I once trained, ran up and hugged me. Then others came, old faces, new ones, handshakes, pats on the back, even a few tears. Walt Jennings stood in the back, gave me a quiet thumbs up. No words were needed. This was our collective victory. Walking out of that gate, I turned back once. Not in regret, but for closure. 27 years, countless shifts, invisible sacrifices. I used to think I'd finished life on that factory floor. But now I knew it's not the hours you worked. It's the moment you stood up that defines your legacy. That afternoon, I visited the bank and deposited my full bonus and interest. The financial advisor smiled. Would you like help planning retirement? I chuckled. No need, I've got plans. That night, I pulled out Linda's old dream list. Visit the Grand Canyon, see the northern lights in Alaska, sleep in an RV under the stars. I Googled in Best RVs for Retired Couples 2025. That weekend, Sophie and her family drove in from San Francisco. We had dinner in the kitchen where I once stared at severance papers, now filled with laughter. My grandson played on the floor. Sophie poured me wine and said, Dad, we're so proud of you. And if Mom were here, I know she'd hug you so hard. I looked up at the ceiling where Linda once hung Christmas lights, and I whispered, you see this, hun? I kept my promise. The next morning, I went to the backyard where Linda once planted an apple tree. I brought a small sign and staked it into the ground. Linda's tree in Miles's new road. I sat beneath it for hours, eyes closed, letting the breeze comb through my hair. I wasn't just a laid-off technician anymore. I was a survivor, a fighter, a man starting again. 1 month later, I left Boise in a brand new RV, white and ocean blue, Linda's favorite colors. On the windshield, let's go where the road forgives. In the passenger seat, a family photo album. In the back, a guitar I've never played. In my hands, a folded map of America, with every dream Linda once had, marked in red ink. I turned the key, and for the first time in nearly 30 years, I was truly free.